Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey,
It's your
Hi.
president and your VP.
and
Special
there was
shout
a.
out to the first lady. Uh, we're back once again with another I love this movie. This time it's
Shazam!
Shazam. Came out, premiered April 5th, 2019. It was directed by David E. Sandberg. It stars Zachary Levi as the main title role. It was produced for a budget of 80 to $100 million, and it made $356 million worldwide.
Yeah, it was a box office success, guys, and it's probably due to the fact that, unlike the other DCEU films, because this is a DCEU, it's not dark or gritty or anything like that. No, it's actually lighthearted and fun, which is something that most fans wanted from the DCEU, other to be because everybody knows that the DC Cinematic Universe, or as people know it as the DCEU, they're trying to copy Marvel and all that good stuff, blah blah blah. And it's like, you know what, guys, just do more films like Shazam and you'll be fine, okay?
In a way. Uh, for those of you who are interested, and for once, I think I can agree with this one, that has a Rotten Tomato score of 90%.
Nice.
So, this is a movie that begins in Christmas 1974 with a young boy who's in the back seat of a car with his brother and his dad. And then suddenly, this young boy is transported to a magical realm where there is a wizard. And this wizard is offering this boy the chance to have uh, a great power. However, the seven deadly sins manifested as demons tempt this boy into acquiring a blue magical orb that would also give him power. And as he goes to, because the wizard says that if you're pure of heart, you could acquire this power. And he is tempted by the demons to accept the other power instead. The wizard blocks this from happening and keeps him from getting the power. And this actually leads to him freaking out when he's back in reality and causes a car accident. This is very important for later in the film. It is transported to present day. Well, actually, let me backtrack. It transcends into present day, which is not really present day because it's a young boy and his mom, and they are at a carnival, and the little boy wants a tiger, but the boy's mother is not quite sharp with the dart throwing skills to hit the balloon. So she ends up winning him a compass, and she tells him that this will help him find his way wherever he is. It is, uh, I think that it's a bit of a metaphor that plays into the film later. It transcends into the boy's name, by the way, is Billy Batson, and it transcends to present day where he is searching for his mom and he tricks the police and finds another address to where his mom might be, but the cops show up and he gets into some trouble because he's a foster kid and a runaway. And I have some actual personal experience with being a foster kid, so I can somewhat relate to this boy's longing to be with his real family, so to speak. This is kind of important a little bit later as well because he goes to a group home where he meets this young boy who has a disability, and the young boy has a batarang from Batman because Batman and
And
Superman both exist in this world.
it's actually a replica of a Batarang, and he also has apparently a bullet that was shot at Superman, so.
And it's a the film takes place
Philadelphia,
in Philadelphia,
Pennsylvania.
which is a rarity in superhero films not really Marvel, but
With the
DC.
DC, because DC, they like to make up their own cities to have their superheroes based in. Gotham, Metropolis, Central City. Just to name a few. But in this instance, it's set in the town of Philadelphia.
So Billy is very hesitant because every other child there's this one little girl who is very attached to him immediately, sees him immediately as as her older brother, and he is very kind of hesitant at first, but he does make friends with the kid with the disability, and the kid shows him the batarang and how he believes in superheroes, and uh, basically in the beginning, Billy kind of wants the ability of invisibility because nobody would really be able to see him, so to speak. And so, they, meanwhile, Dr. Savannah has grown up. The boy from the beginning who was tempted by the power. He has grown up and he has found a way to actually acquire the evil power. And so the demons that are the seven deadly sins manifest themselves into the blue ball that gets put into his left eye. And actually, I think it's his right eye. Yeah, it's his right eye.
It's
And
this eye right here, so it'd be right eye.
yeah, so he is with that eye. He is actually able to see all magic and has the powers of all seven deadly sins that reside within him. But as soon as he has actually acquired that, Billy has already acquired the ability because he is pure of heart. I'm kind of skipping over a few things here because we kind of got to make this short. The VP's got a haircut here in a few minutes,
As you can see,
a
it's getting
haircut
pretty raggedy
appointment.
here.
So, uh, yeah, he spent this time, and there's also I want to point out that there's these two teenage kids who are a little bit older than them,
Uh,
and these kids are just your typical bully type of kids that just kind of go around pushing their weight around, and you've seen it so often, and they push their weight around. Excuse me. And so Billy picks a fight with them because they are kind of picking a fight with his young disabled friend. And because they nearly hit the kid with the disability. Kid walks with a cane. It's not his fault. It's just something that kind of
he
happened.
he actually tried going out the window. It's explained in the film. He tried going out the
Yeah.
second story window, and he fell and permanently damaged his leg in the process. That they explain it in the film. Don't worry, it's not like, oh,
Yeah.
he has a disability, and I'm going to do my best Cinema Sins impression here. Why does he have the walking stick or whatever?
Yeah, they do actually a very good job of this, of explaining it in great detail. And I'll also tell you guys that if you've never seen the rest of the DC Universe films, you do not have to worry because you can just dive right into Shazam and understand exactly what's going on as
I
the
mean,
film
there
progresses.
are newspaper clippings hinting to the other DCEU films, but you don't really need to watch the other DCEU films to understand.
Exactly. And so as this progresses, Billy, as Shazam, who's full grown Zachary Levi, a great actor, by the way. We covered him last time in American Underdog. Uh, they are testing his abilities to find out what he has, and they learn very quickly that he has immunity and he has lightning powers, and
Super speed and flight.
the movie is a action comedy, and there's this one little cool bit where they're doing the Survivor Eye of the Tiger because Billy at first doesn't understand what it means to be a true hero. So people are paying him.
Lightning hands, lightning.
So people.
Lightning hands.
Yeah. So people are paying him basically to be. Let's call him what they're paying him to be. They're paying him to be this sideshow attraction. right? You know, it's one of these things where you would see in like a local carnival type of thing in a way, the strong man and whatnot. And anyways, his friend kind of sees through this, but his friend actually had pushed him to develop these powers. And they also, there's a moment where they're going to buy beer, and they do, because Zachary Levi, aka Shazam, is a full fledged adult. So they buy beer, and but before they do that, the store is being robbed, and they go and they shoot. They empty their entire handguns into Shazam, and it does absolutely nothing.
And then
And
he
Freddy
says,
suggests to him, shoot him in the face, and he's like, what? Why would you suggest that? But they go ahead and shoot him in the face, and he has he's bulletproof basically as well. So the demons meanwhile, the demons have told Dr. Savannah that there is one that has a power that is greater than his. And that if he's able to discover his true power, he'll be able to defeat him. And the demons show him where he's at. So as things progress, Billy, meanwhile, has never stopped looking for his real mom, as we had discussed a little bit earlier. He finds his real mom. And to me, I thought at first one of two things, that it could be a very touching moment or a very heartbreaking moment.
it's both.
And she reveals that she saw him looking for her, and that she was 17. And I can understand this to a degree, that she was 17, she was confused, she thought that the police could do a much better job than her. But it's like, why would you do that, though? I mean, I understand that to a certain degree, but on the same hand, this boy, he spent his entire life looking for her. He never stopped. And she was just two subway exits away from where he currently resides. And as I was saying before about the compass and finding your way, I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's the way that I interpreted it, that the compass was meant at the time to represent Billy's heart, and that his heart would guide his way.
And then he actually gives the compass that his mother gave to him when he was real young to her and says, "You probably need this more than I do."
Yeah, it's very heartbreaking, and he says, I have to go be with my real family now. Because for the first time, really, for the first time, Billy understands who his real family is. And it's these group of kids that live with him, and it's his foster parents. So after all of this, Shazam at first runs from Dr. Savannah because he doesn't quite understand what it had meant up until then. That earlier he had ran from Dr. Savannah, and they're like, how could a mere boy have this power? But it's like, hey, Dr. Savannah, don't you remember that you were a boy when you tried to acquire the power? Well, yeah, and he was corrupted by the outside influence. And so there's a big climactic battle, of course, that leads to
The
uh,
rest of his family members also getting the power of Shazam.
because he realizes, and it's a good lesson, really, when you think about it. Those who have power, I mean, what good is power if you're not able to share that power? And it's a lesson I think that a lot of people, even now today, need to learn, because we see it too often in real life that those that have the power aren't willing to share it. But that's another topic for another discussion. We're talking about this superhero film. And so he realizes, they figure out that if they're able to separate the demons from him, well, then he's just an old man again. And so as things progress throughout, they are able to draw the demons out, but then there's one that is left. And
Envy.
Shazam baits him into drawing the envy out because at its core, at Dr. Savannah's core, deep down in his evil heart, has always existed envy. He was always envious of the power that he could not attain. So that was one point that they were really trying to drive home. And so that he's able to draw them all out, and they confine the demons back into the blue orb, and they have it in basically the lair because they at the beginning the
There are seven
sole
thrones
remaining
for the
wizard
wizards. Yeah.
the sole remaining wizard was left, and he describes how his brothers had basically fallen, and that there were no other people left to sit on the thrones to share the power as he was talking about. So they are now have this base of operations where they're going to be able to conduct things in the future, and Dr. Savannah has ended up in a padded room in a
Oh,
post-credit scene.
but before that, we see in a denouement. By the way, that's a fancy word. Just means after the story is ended. That's what it means in French. But in a denouement, we see that Freddy is sitting by himself at a lunch table, and then nobody else wants to sit with him because they think he's crazy that his superhero friend didn't show up. So, after that, his family then sits with him at lunch, and then we see Shazam walk in the room where he's like, "Yo, this is my super cool friend," and stuff. And he's like, "I hope he didn't mind, but I invited somebody else." And then we see the costume of Superman show up in frame, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool teaser."
Yeah, it's a very cool teaser. And as I said, in the post-credit scene, we see Dr. Savannah in a padded room, and he's got all these markings on the wall. And then a little worm appears, and the little worm tells him, "Do you think that was the only way to acquire magic? Because I have infinite knowledge of all the magic." So
And
it's
he's
like,
like, "What in God's name are you?" And he's like, "I invented the God's name."
yeah, it's going to be very
By the way,
interesting.
this worm is a very important major Shazam villain, and if you don't know who he is, then read the comics.
Right. And he kept mentioning, and I should point out that in looking up information, production notes, that Mr. Dwayne Johnson was going to be, in fact, a producer of this film. And he is supposedly going to be
Black Adam.
Black Adam. That's Adam, by the way, not Atom, Adam. So he's going to be Black Adam in the next film. I felt, and he was wondering why Black Adam wasn't really in this one.
And then he told me that Dr. Savannah was like the first Shazam villain in the golden age of comics. I was like,
Going back to 1940, and Captain Marvel, as he was known back then, actually was surpassing Superman in sales, making him probably actually the most popular superhero at the time. The reason why the name was changed to Shazam is because Wiz Comics sold the rights to Captain Marvel to DC, because by then they were basically a fledgling, almost bankrupt company. So DC had to, of course, change the name because
Marvel
Marvel
sued
Comics
them over.
already had a Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and Marvel Comics actually sued DC over the rights and the name for Captain Marvel, and then DC's like, all right, whatever. Here, have the name.
So, final thoughts on this film. It's a very fun, family oriented superhero film. There are a few swear words here and there. It is rated PG 13 for some mild language and
Superhero violence.
superhero violence. But it would, I would not have no problems. And of course, as we always say in these type of situations, though, parents, screen the movie ahead of time. Don't just let your child sit down and watch a movie like that, because, as we said, there is a little bit of of language. It's rather tame,
Yeah, it is
but
rather tame. Like, and even like even the one f bomb rule that they use, it's censored, so it's like it doesn't matter. So
yeah. To me, it's basically a throwback, right? Because we've all been bombarded with these very dark type of superhero films. Not that there's anything wrong with that, with exploring the complexities of what makes a superhero or a supervillain a supervillain.
yeah,
But it is kind of nice to have actually had this more kind of campy, goofier type of superhero
yeah,
with the comedy in it. So I felt that that was a nice kind of break, if you will, from the rest of the onslaught of dark, dark, dark. Just throw it in your face about the darkness of all that.
yeah.
But
What's your final rating on this one?
final rating 4 7/8 out of 5. What say you?
4 3/4 out of 5.
Okay. So that makes it a combined total rated average of 4 2/3 out of 5. It is definitely an I love this movie. If you've never seen it before, you can check it out on HBO Max, on among other streaming services. It's also available for rent on said streaming services. You can find it on DVD, digital copy, as well as Blu-ray. Go out, check it out. But of course, as always, if
If
you
you
have seen Shazam and you think that it is the worst superhero film of all time,
clearly you've never seen Steel.
or Howard the Duck,
Ugh.
yeah, maybe someday we'll get to those. But hey, just remember, we're just two
Two
idiots
idiots
with
with
a
a
digital
digital
camera.
camera.
Our
Our
opinions
opinions
do
do
not
not
matter,
matter,
except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So, having said all that, stay tuned next time where it's going to be Encanto. So we'll join you guys when we see you next time. And as always, there's only one thing left to say, and that is peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye.